And then that way I'll just be able to, because I'm ready to get spacey. Today I'd like to talk with you about one of my favorite subjects when it comes to cartography and man's growth into his next kind of realm of exploration, space. With a lot of Americans, though, the first thing that we think of is we don't think of the space race and kind of all that happened. We just think of Apollo, we think of NASA, we think of landing on the moon, and that's it. What we don't remember is that the firsts that happened at the beginning of the space race were Soviet ones. First person in space, first man-made object to reach the moon, and first thing to make orbit around Earth, Sputnik. Here, a promotional thing that they did late 57, early 58, is they were facing the cosmos. Notice it's published in English, by the way. They're flexing on us. Likewise, a Soviet piece that looked at the greater expanse of Russia and how it was growing at the time, and of course, at all points, Sputnik will be included. Keep in mind at the same time, this is 1958, and we're already at a point where we're kind of in between science fiction and science fact. Here, a base map that was done by McNally with some illustrations around it, including as if we were on the surface of Venus or on the surface of Neptune, and a three-ship expedition to Mars at that point. A few small things that were kind of interesting, I just liked because of the scalar issue. Dr. West's map is saying, if you're traveling 25,000 miles an hour, it's about 8.5 hours to the moon. To get to Pluto is going to take you 12 years. Alcoa did a nice little piece that was looking at the potential. This was done in the early 60s, but it's saying by 67 we'll probably have somebody that lands on the moon. And certainly by 1970 we'll have a two-man expedition that orbits Mars. An image that's come to, I think, the whole reframing that takes place is the astronaut space map, because it's a map that's no longer, it's not going to be centered on a continent or a river or a state or anything else. The realization is that the neighborhood is so much bigger, and now the context for man himself is he's part of a much bigger system than how he usually thinks. We're really excited that we got to do an article about this very image, the historic first photo of Earth from deep space, which was a rogue action that was taken by some cocky young engineers that thought it would be a cool idea, and they just pulled it off and did it. We did an article, and if you'd like to find out more about that, we'll supply you with the link. So we have one of these from the 1960s, an interesting base map that's just trying to show where we were thinking of for potential landing sites for the moon. And interestingly, on the verso, you also get a series of images, including Mr. Shellhorn's previous image that we showed you. A favorite series that was from Luc Béguin that was published with Spirou, a French publication that had perhaps a different perspective on the space race, and so you end up with both American presence as well as Soviet presence. So it has our lunar landers and surveyor as well as the Luna project from the Soviets. Here, both sides of the moon and everybody that had reached it up to that point. By the time we get to Apollo, they continue to do images, this including a young Wernher von Braun, I suppose is the token European guy as a young child, meant to inspire. Hands down, our favorite image from 1970 was this, which we jokingly refer to as Your Seat is Waiting, which is the interior of one of the Apollo capsules with two astronauts present, and a clear sense as to what the future may hold and that you might be a part of it. Interestingly, all of the interior switches and dials and everything, it's not fantasy, it's all function, and they give you a key in the lower right-hand side as to what was doing what. Once again, since it's not aligned, the French would publish both successes, so here we get the Soviet take on the landers that had reached the moon at the time. And then beyond the race to the moon, next step for us was Skylab. Here we have an image that you can cut out and then curve in so you too can enjoy the claustrophobic sense of what it was like to be at Skylab in the early 70s. And then last from the same series, cool thing it's real early for Space Shuttle. We had done some of the piggyback flights at this point in 77, and the verso has a great sketch out for what it looked like from the ground. One celebratory thing from Rockwell for looking at the lunar landing for the success of Apollo 11 in '69, which harkens back to map makers of centuries prior and kind of takes that same aesthetic and converts it into today. 74, aerospace environment. Still, we had to wrestle with where does it begin, what happens where, what's affected where. So here, a scalar view from the side as to what you would expect to encounter along the way. Around the time of Halley's Comet, when it passed by Uranos, the firmament, the heavens in Greek. Here, a great handy chart to show you when you could anticipate more meteor showers, complete with a chart for relative throughout the year. Great thing from NASA that's just the mapping of the solar system as it was up into the 90s. So you get 3 views of the major planets and some moons. And then the gas giants are supplied just for relative scale. Last but not least, I love this guy's work. Earl Bateman had an interest in using glow-in-the-dark ink, which you could actually feel when he touches things. And the intent was not just for the sensation of it, but to show some other sense of scalar action or something that was transpiring, a system that was at work that you didn't normally see. Here he uses the ink to be able to show orbits, but he also includes, and we do have his reference that comes along with it, which discusses each of the Explorer probes that had gone out by this time. So going all the way back to '62 in Mariner, and then all the way up to 1989 in Galileo. An uncommon thing, getting to be a rare thing to find anymore. So there should be a list of all these items down in the description. If there's questions, feel free to contact us, and we'll catch you next time.